on, y'all!
Hey everybody, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz. Welcome to another episode of The Next Level, and with my co-host Melissa Fancy.
Hi everybody.
And Melissa and I are going to go through the interview as we do every week and pick out a few key topics and help translate them into specific tactical strategies that you can use to bring your business to the next level. And before we go any further, I just want to say to everyone, I would love to get your help. I would like to know what more or different that you would like to get out of the show, The Wedding Biz, and even The Next Level as well. With the regular show, I would like to know, are there any particular guests who you would love to have me interview on the show? Are there any particular kinds of questions or topics that you would like me to include that I'm not already? Any particular education that you would like to have us provide? Anything that you're interested in, we want to hear about it. I really want to hear about it. And if you have nothing new, just please contact me to tell me what you are enjoying that you would like me to continue. So I'm going to give you my personal email, and I am going to return every single person's email. It might take me a few days to get back to you, so give me a little time. But it is Andy@theweddingbiz.com. Again, Andy@theweddingbiz.com. And I really look forward to hearing from you. So Melissa, what do you got?
Oh, you guys, we have a great review. We love getting reviews from everyone, and it definitely helps us in ratings. So please keep them coming. This is just a nice little note from Doogie157. I don't know your real name, but hopefully you are listening. The lovely note you dropped was, "You are also inspiring. Thanks so much, Andy, for this wonderful podcast."
Oh, great. Doogie157, thank you for sending that in. And hey, write me. Let me know more. So today's guest is Robert Fountain, and I met Robert in his studio in San Francisco. He is a designer and a planner who operates so differently than anyone I've had on the show. Most of his events are really experiential type of events, even with weddings, which is really fascinating how he does it. It is not typical. And Robert really flies under the radar because most of his clients are high-profile Silicon Valley CEOs and tech founders, as well as the international social set. And many of his high-profile clients, the productions feature internationally recognized talent such as Jennifer Lopez, Maroon 5, The Killers, Beck, John Legend, Jay Leno, and more. Robert is also known to charter yachts and planes or contract islands and castles as backdrops for his designs. Really fascinating conversation. And again, if you haven't listened to it, this is one to really check out in full. Very different. So, Melissa, what is a first kind of topic that you would suggest we talk about that kind of came out of this interview?
I think he's so inspiring because he does his process and his business is so different, but he's also very, very authentic. And I really appreciate that about him. You know, he talks about how he still gets nervous and how it's important to like honor that, but also if you are comfortable, there's probably something wrong, and we should feel a little bit unsettled. We should feel a little bit anxious. Like that is a little bit more proof that we are getting outside of our comfort zone. So I really liked that because, you know, a quote I kind of live by is, "Complacency is coasting, and coasting only is downhill." And I use that to remind myself that we should always be getting outside our comfort zones.
I love that quote. And I remember too, he was talking about how, in his opinion, most creative people are anxiety driven, which was an interesting statement to make, that it's almost part of our type of personality. And that part of the process is that to recognize that, like Melissa just said, and Robert was talking about, that I believe he said, when you stop being nervous, you're not good anymore. And so and he mentioned how it really drives him, and he's got a real thick skin. He talked about his childhood and the bullying that he got and all of that. And he's got a very thick skin. And so when he's feeling anxious, it drives him to do better and better. And so he views it as a friend now, and he feels like it's almost an adrenaline rush. I understand what he's saying. I wish I could feel it even more like he does, that he uses it in that way, but it makes a lot of sense. And also, he prefers a really short period of time, relatively speaking, to produce an event or for the pre-production. It's interesting. He was talking about how he just doesn't like it to get drawn out. Even with weddings, this is so wild. I have not heard this from anyone. I believe he said that he will only take on a wedding with 5 weeks out of planning. And I asked him, I said, well, whoa, how your clients, they'll deal with that? I mean, because, most of us, we're with a client for a year and we have meetings and we're hanging out with them and there's so much going on. And he says, well, no, he only gets clients for weddings who understand his process and they're not expecting these weekly calls and all these meetings. And so they literally appreciate it. They're happy to pay for it, he said. And a lot of his clients that he has are from the tech world, Silicon Valley, who he said, it was interesting the way he said it, they've changed our world and they don't work in this typical way of having meeting after meeting after meeting. Did you catch that too?
Right. That demographic is very different than a lot of, the demographic that I work with, or even probably that you work with. But those people are moving a million miles a minute. They are very succinct. They know what they want. A lot of those events too, they're not as emotional as a wedding. He talked about how he's not doing as many weddings as he has some of these other events are social or corporate. And so when you remove the wedding, marriage emotional element out of planning an event, it is a very different thing. And so you can get by without having a phone call every single week to talk about, something that has like so much weight on it. So I think that element is there. But, he's really honed his process and he has boundaries and he says, this is how I'm going to work. And it's great because it attracts the clients that work well with him.
I still feel there's some interesting thing to get out of this in terms of his style of doing this. And by the way, he was saying that for his weddings, none of them are the kind where, maybe there's a tent or a different room for a meal and then dancing, or it's all in one ballroom or something. He says he doesn't do it. There's never a sit down dinner, nothing like that, not even dancing. He said that, and again, you can hear more details in the interview, but they are experiential kind of weddings where there are several rooms, there are things going on, certain kinds of activities, and he's taking people through an experience. And he has ways of still focusing on the couple who've gotten married, but it's radically different. And I thought that just to kind of open our minds to another way of thinking about it was interesting. And coming back to the concept of meetings, he was mentioning he just doesn't hold a lot of meetings with any clients. And I was thinking about a podcast, maybe serendipitously, it was the same week I heard it. It was Seth Godin on a recent Tim Ferriss podcast. Seth Godin, and I think a lot of us know, big marketing consultant, very well known, tons of best-selling books. He says he never holds any meetings. He doesn't go to any meetings. Seth Godin. He does not believe that they're productive. He does not think they're efficient. There's more to it, of course. But basically, Robert works in the same way. And like you say, Melissa, it's not necessarily the kind of clients that we have, but it's still just an interesting take on it to think about, And he also talked about how what he sent, like what does he do? He ends up sending his clients after just a very little conversation, really, a 50 to 100 page design deck. And he said that most of the time they only have 2 or 3 questions. And his kinds of clients, whether they're for weddings or corporate events or fundraising galas or just a party, they're used to reading synopses and just going by gut, which also makes me think of Richard Branson. I read his first book, Losing My Virginity, and he talks about how he doesn't read all these big reports. He reads the synopsis. He goes with his gut. I'm not saying we should all do that, but I thought it was fascinating.
If we all figure out what is our happy place for our process, Robert's figured out his and Richard Branson's figured out his. I think if we figure out what really makes us open to doing our job the best way possible, and we really, really stick to our boundaries that way, I think we'll find that, we make our clients a lot happier, but we can work more efficiently. And I think that's why, Robert and Richard and Seth are all very protective of how they work and what is going to work best for them and their teams. And I think eventually, you have to figure out how to do that and establish that so that you're not ending up burnt out, because otherwise we're all just going to be working around the clock like crazy people.
I do want to add before we go into another topic that one of the things I did get that I'm actually applying literally since I interviewed him, because I can't work, with my type of clients, I can't do it the way he does it. However, one of the other things he said during the interview connected to this is that he doesn't want to oversaturate clients with questions and what to do's and how to do's. And the way I've applied that to myself is that, my style for getting to know my clients in my entertainment business and doing this very highly customized, personalized, high touch service for the music and entertainment is to get to know them in a certain way, similar to a lot lot of us in the industry. And I kind of rethought the amount of questions that I ask and the amount of detail, let's say, that I go into. And I've noticed I have pulled back. I mean, it's more of a compromise. And I feel like I am getting more to the heart of it quicker because of that way of thinking about it. So that's actually helped me. Another topic is, this was really interesting. And I don't know that, how many of us can really do this, but he was saying that he is the only person that his client ever meets. Now, again, like Melissa, you were saying earlier, he has these, very different types of clients. Well, I'm sure that his people are meeting with his clients' people. But in terms of the client themselves, he's the only one they ever meet. This is, again, Robert's style. It works for him. And he also picks up every call. And I remember when we had Cindy Novotny on the show, Cindy was talking about how, and this is someone who's like the busiest person I've ever met in my life, Cindy will respond to every inquiry, though it's brief, but she feels that it's important for her as the owner to make the first touch. And she'll basically say, hey, got your email. So glad you're interested. Let me, when can you be available next week between Monday, Wednesday, Friday? And I'll have so-and-so or so-and-so get back to you. And, she does that and then she forwards it. But the point is that she takes the first call. Robert takes all the calls. And one of his examples of how it helped him is that his career, he felt, really took off 13 years ago with, I believe, Marissa Miner. And she had cold called as a referral from someone else. She actually herself called his office. He picked up the phone. He said it changed his life. It changed his life. He was the one who picked up the phone. He's grateful for that. He doesn't feel that it's not that it was negative about his staff, but it was because he connected with her personally, took it into a whole nother place. And he says he now does several things a year for her. And it completely changed his career. All of his clients go to her parties and experience what he had done.
I love that. And when I said that I loved how much he is just so authentic, that I think is a big element of it, that he's accessible. There used to be this whole idea that when somebody called your business that, a receptionist needed to answer the phone and you had to have like an appointment scheduled and this whole thing. And really, I feel like it was very ego driven. And these days, our world has changed so much. Sales has changed, like the way that we communicate with our clients has changed. Accessibility and authenticity that way is king now. So if you pick up the phone when somebody is calling and you are able to connect with them immediately and actually give them the information that they want, and this is texting, this is, any of the communication that they prefer. But if you are the one to actually do that and not a receptionist, if you're the one that picks up the phone, that's going to blow their mind. And you're going to have a much higher chance of success with that client or that inquiry because you're there. You're right there when you were needed.
It's interesting. I mean, I know for my business, there is absolutely no way I can pick up every call, not even most of the calls. However, I have to admit, the times that I am the first touch with a client or a potential client or someone in the industry has definitely led to some really cool things because I am the one who was the first touch. So, it's an interesting balance for us all to think about what we are able to handle and how that could work for us. Or maybe there's a point where we train our people, whoever is the first touch, that there's a certain place where let's get me on the phone quicker. It's an interesting thing to think about. I just want to take a moment and say, wouldn't we all like to have more exposure in our markets? I mean, certainly our own handling of social media and various other tools are ways that we do gain more presence. Though, what if you could have professional outside help that you could depend on to really get you the results that you need? And I know we all are happy to get much more presence. Well, I want to tell you about our sponsor of today, OFD Consulting. They are an award-winning publicity agency that focuses on the wedding industry, and their client portfolio ranges from top-tier planners and venues to well-regarded national brands and industry thought leaders. And OFD Consulting has placed clients in a slew of popular online and offline publications, including the New York Times, Martha Stewart Weddings, Style Me Pretty, many others. And they also have a service that's dedicated entirely to B2B press for those looking to elevate their brand reputation among peers through online mentions, guest articles, podcasts, and speaking engagements. So if you are a small business and you want to get your name out there, get more exposure for your brand, get your message out there, and you want to just like dip your toes in the PR waters, check out the OFD Collective, which is a 3-star membership with robust educational and coaching opportunities, along with ongoing press leads. So definitely check out ofdconsulting.com. Again, that's ofdconsulting.com. Before we wrap up, there's another topic we really don't have time to get into, but I want to encourage you all to listen to the interview. It's about pricing. And we all know how sensitive that topic is and what a hot button it is in our industry. And at almost every conference that we've been to, it comes up as a very big topic. And I just want to briefly say, again, it's better to listen and really get the detail from Robert, but he is very transparent about what his costs are. He charges a percentage of the production budget. He even talked about what the percentage is that he gets to design and pre-produce an event. And then, of course, once there, I mean, he does charge for labor, but all the other items are at cost. So it's a very interesting conversation to listen back to. So I want to thank all of you for listening today to The Next Level, talking about Robert Fountain. Before we talk about who's coming up next, Melissa, what do you have for people?
You guys, we are getting ready to head to Engage Cabo, and I am just so over the moon to see everybody. We're going to be sending out an email with the list of people that Andy's interviewed from Engage that will be speaking at Cabo. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. If you are not on our mailing list, you can head to our website, which is theweddingbiz.com. You can sign up for it there, or you can access that on our Instagram, which is at WeddingBizShow. Also put your email there, and we will be sure to send that out to you. If you are not following us on Instagram, please make sure you do that, because we announce our latest episodes and we have lots of fun behind the scenes, especially when Andy travels for interviews. So be sure you are on there as well.
You know, I love, Melissa, that you're going to send out this email with the people who are speaking to hear their interviews, because it's really a different experience to be able to hear their story before you go to this conference and hear what they have to say. And if you run into them in the hallways, you've got something to talk about too. So yeah, I encourage you to check that out and start listening as many as you can. It's really fun to go there with that behind you. And as far as next week's guest, it is yet another person from San Francisco, Allison Hotchkiss Rinderknecht. And Allison is a planner designer. She also has a bit of a different take on it. Really great conversation. So be sure to tune in next week. Thank you for listening to us on The Next Level, and we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.